Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna, we're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, entitled Manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu. Text 11. And actually, we have it on the board here. Okay. And so this is 3.8.11. And we can start with the Sanskrit words responsively. Sonta, Sharire, Arpita, Bhuta, Sukshma, Kalatmikam, Shaktim, Udirayana, Uvasa, Tasmin, Salile, Pade, Sve, Yatanalo, Daruni, Udhabirya, Sonta Shirire Pitabhuta Sukshma, Kalatmikam Shakti Mudirayana. Uvasa tasmin salile pade sve. Yatana lo daruni wudhavirya. Sonta shirire pitabhuta sukshma. Kalatmikam shakti mudirayana. Uvasa tasmin salile pade sve. Yatana lo daruni wudhavirya. Sonta shirire pitabhuta sukshma. Kalatmikam shakti mudirayana. Uvasa tasmin salile pade sve. Yatana lo daruni wudhavirya. Sonta sarire pitabhuta sukshma. Kalatmikam shakti mudirayana. Uvasa tasmin salile pade sve. Yatana lo daruni wudhavirya. Sonta sarire pitabhuta sukshma.
Kalatmikam Saktim Mudirayana.
Kalatmikam shakti mudirayana.
Uvasya tasmin salile padeshve.
Udasa tasmin salile pade sve.
Yutana Virya.
Yatana lo daruni wudhavirya. Would anyone online like to lead the chanting? Rachel.
Sonta sarirai arpita bhuta sukshma.
Sonta sarire pitabhuta sukshma.
Kalatmikam shaktim udi chavanaha.
Kalatmikam shakti mudirayana.
Uvasha tasmin salile.
There's a glare, I think. That's why she's not seeing on the board.
Can you turn it a little bit more towards it, please?
Yeah. Because
Oh, thank you. And a little, yeah. Oh, thank you. Uvasha tasmin salile padeshve.
Vasatasmin salile padesve.
Yatana lo daruni rudha viraha. Viraha.
Yatana lo daruni rudha virya. Yes. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yeah. Well, we could we find by making the verse and the song words available online, which I know is possible. A project for the future. Okay, let's study the word meanings. Sa, the Supreme Lord.
The Supreme Lord.
Anta,
Anta,
within.
within.
Sharire,
Sharire,
in the transcendental body.
in the transcendental body.
Arpita,
Arpita,
kept.
kept.
Bhuta,
Bhuta,
material elements.
material elements.
Sukshma,
Shukshma,
subtle.
settle.
Kala atmikam,
Atmikam,
the form of time.
the form of time.
Shaktim,
Shakti,
energy.
energy.
Udirayana,
Dear young,
invigorating.
invigorating.
Uvasa,
Uvasa,
resided.
resided.
Tasmin,
Tasmi,
therein.
therein.
Salile,
Salim,
in the water.
in the water.
Pade,
Padu,
in the place.
in the place.
Sve,
Shve,
his own.
his own.
Yata,
Yata,
as much as.
as much as.
Anala,
Anam,
fire.
fire.
Daruni,
Daruni,
in the
in
firewood.
the fire.
Rudhavirya,
Rudhavira,
submerged strength.
their merged strength.
Translation. Just like the strength of fire within fuel wood, the Lord remained within the water of dissolution, submerging all the living entities in their subtle bodies. He lay in the self-invigorated energy called Kala. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. After the three worlds, the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems merged into the water of dissolution, the living entities of all the three worlds remained in their subtle bodies by dint of the energy called Kala. In this dissolution, the gross bodies became unmanifest, but the subtle bodies existed just like the water of the material creation. Thus, the material energy was not completely wound up, as is the case in the full dissolution of the material world. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Lalita Vishakams Spiritam's Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapati Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Kvavani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 8 Text 11 Santa Sharire Pita Bhuta Sukshma Kalatmikam Shakti Mudirayana Vasatasmin salile pade sveyatana ludaruni rudavirya. Just like the strength of fire within fuel wood, the Lord remained within the water of dissolution, submerging all the living entities in their subtle bodies. He lay in the self-invigorated energy called Kala. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaivinarotamam devim sarasatim vyasam tatojyamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nicham Bhagavata Seveya Bhagavat Yutamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Hare Krishna. Okay, so here, we're getting into some extensive description of the creation, the material creation, and some of us were involved in recent days in one of our seminars called Sappho 3, An Adventure in Conscious Living. We use the term the human context or the material context. And so, because the question could be, it's like, well, I just want to love God. I just want to love Krishna. Why to hear about, there's a lot of detailed knowledge here, why, and we're going to get into about the 24 elements and the process of creation and the interrelation between time and karma and Kali and Kala and Prakriti, and it's going to go on for quite an extensive analysis. And well, a few things. One thing's like, well, if we're absorbed in full loving devotional service to God, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to the divine couple, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, then in a sense there's no need, like Krishna says at the end of the chapter, Ateva Bonaite, 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Ateva Bonaite, Nena Kim Gyatena Tavarjuna, Vista Bhyamidam Kritsnam. What need is there for all this detailed knowledge? Krishna gives in that chapter so many ways to know him through nature, through the material creation, through the lion and the rivers and the oceans and the seas and dozens and dozens of ways. And then he says, Yad Yad Vibhuti Matsatvam Srimad Ujitam Evava Tatat Eva Avagachatam Ekam Shenasti Tojagat. And he says, and know, Arjuna, know that all these beautiful, mighty, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. That spark of Krishna's splendor, that's the super soul, situated in the hearts of all living entities. Ishvara Sarabhutanam Videsha Arjuna Tishtati. So now, at the same time, I'm reminded here, like, okay, so there's Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 14 is entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature, the three gunas. Tamas, Rajas, Sattva. And now before that, Krishna's talked about devotional service. Chapter 9 is entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, and he's given knowledge of the difference between spirit and matter. And in the first verse of chapter 14 about material creation, modes of nature, Krishna says, he says, this is the most important knowledge. This is the most important. And Srila Prabhupada expands on that in his purport to the first verse. So we can wonder, how is this the most important? Krishna's already given knowledge about spiritual activities, the spiritual world, relationship with the God, knowledge of the absolute, bhakti. So I don't claim to have much extensive realization, but one way we can understand this is like, let's say if we're, climbing a ladder, we can say, what's the most important rung on the ladder? Well, we could say the top rung. Same time, we could say the most important rung is right where my hand is right now. Meeting ourselves, this is where I'm at now. So what I'm understanding Krishna is saying, and here Maitreya Muni is saying, representing Krishna, is that like to actually get liberated from material conditioned illusion life, we need to know how and where we're attached to the context. Ishvara sarvabhutanam videsha natishthati brahmayan sarvabhutana yantravudani mayaya. That Krishna describes that the living entities in conditioned life, or yantra means machine, are like stuck on a machine made of the material energy, a machine. And so it's like how we're touched, what's our attachments? And that knowledge, along with realized knowledge of the process of liberation, chanting the names of God, chanting Hare Krishna, following regulative principles of freedom. And so this is helpful, if not essential, to understand what's our attachment to trying to fix the context. An analogy we used this past weekend, like trying to rearrange the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. Okay, but what meaning, like, if I just fix this and fix that, and just take care of this little ailment, and make sure I pay my insurance and on my vehicle, and then here's this person insulting me. I need to destroy him, and if I can just take care of that, finally, happiness. Okay, so that's always chasing the carrot on the stick, right? That's always, Saint Francis said, we are searching for what is searching, meaning happiness, joy, fulfillment, love, inner security, freedom, all those experiences that everyone's seeking, they naturally exist in the diamond soul, and they're manifest. Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Saji Kapuno Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karya Udai. They awaken and manifest when we're engaged in bhakti, when we're engaged in hearing and chanting about Krishna and his pastimes and his associates. And then they naturally manifest. No, it's not that we shouldn't fix the flat tire on the car. Not that we shouldn't be responsible about our accounting and take care of our ailments. Yeah, we're fully encouraged to be responsible in all dimensions. What we're getting at here is that to think that once I take care of all the disturbances and difficulties, then I'll be fulfilled, satisfied, secure, and happy. And that's the illusion. Of course, we want to be responsible, highly responsible, excellently responsible in all dimensions of life, personal relationships, and taking care of our health, taking care of our emotional health, and handling the Lakshmi, the money energy, and just to realize, we're quoting this quote from Gabor Mate a lot recently, including the past weekend. Safety is not the absence of threat, it is the presence of connection. Now, we can understand that in the context of Bhagavatam, that ultimate connection is that connection with God in the heart, the connection with Krishna, the connection with the very ground, source, and substratum of our existence. And then that's safety, because as far as the absence of threat, that will never, ever happen. The nature of the human context, the nature of the material context, is there's always threat. No, I got the life I want, I got everything I want, but then there's threat. You're going to lose it. I got everything I want, but the body is getting older. I'm not going to be able to enjoy them, or I got the finances I want, but now I'm in a higher tax bracket and the government wants to take it. But now I got what I want. I got that respect. But now here's these envious people trying to pull me down, and they're fighting my weak spots and trying to expose me. That's the nature of material. It's a temporary place full of miseries, but true safety, that's in awakening the natural love of Krishna that's in the heart through the process of bhakti. So creation. And also apart from that, just like if the, just like we quoted this recently too, even yesterday in our conscious living expansion program, we quoted, right, the first text of the Bible, the Tanakh, the Torah, the book of Genesis, first verse, first chapter, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. So that's the story of creation. Okay, now in the Bhagavatam, there's no contradiction. It's just the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, especially Bhagavatam, it unpacks that, enters into that with about 1,000,000 times more detail. But basically, it's consistent. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. And so this goes into more detail. And just like it, we want to love God, we want to love Krishna, we want to love Sri Sri Radha Krishna. Okay? All right, so this is how God creates. So naturally, just like we love someone, oh, what are they creating? What are they manifesting? There's Krishna's pastimes in the spiritual world. There's Krishna's pastimes with the gopis and the cowherd boys. And in Vaikuntha, there's the pastimes. And the material world, this is also the pastimes of Krishna. This is also the pastimes of Krishna. So naturally, an aspiring servant of Krishna wants to know and understand about also the pastimes of creation. Now, to make a distinction, so this whole material creation, it is Krishna's pastimes. That doesn't mean that, oh, that means whatever I do, it's part of Krishna's pastimes. Didn't you realize this is just Krishna's pastimes, all the foolishness I'm doing and all the time I'm wasting? This is just Krishna's pastime. No, it's not my pastime. It's Krishna's, the whole creation is peace. It's Krishna's pastimes to give us Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Mudachite Purnasya Purnamade Purnameva Vashishite. Everything's a complete and perfect arrangement, because Krishna is providing a complete context in creation to support, encourage, caringly challenge us to go to self-realization. So including the misery, the disturbance of the material context, especially the disturbance, the misery, the troubles, the problems, they're perfectly arranged for us to go inside. And let me give up hoping against hope that by adjusting the material atmosphere, I'll be happy. It's futile. It's futile. Again, of course, we want to be responsible in all of the spheres, but that's my actual happiness is in realizing who I am, a spirit soul, servant of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's why it's Krishna's, because Krishna doesn't need anything from us, and he wants us to love him. He wants us to choose to love him. Love means choice. If there's no choice, there's no love. If I were to create a robot, and at regular intervals, the robot says, David, I really love you. How can I serve you? It's, oh, that is so sweet. but it's not going to be satisfying, because I know it's just programmed that way by me. But then when we voluntarily choose to enter each other's world and understand, Prabhupada writes and says many times, how can you love someone if you don't understand them, right? So, but then someone chooses to serve us and care for us and hear from us and understand our deepest fears and desires. Oh, okay, then that's satisfying. So that's similarly with Krishna. He's not creating robots, and he wants us to choose to direct our free wills. Krishna, how can I serve you? And all the miseries of material creation are meant to turn us in that way. Never any force. Krishna speaks the entire Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and at the closure he says, Vimisheta yasheshena yate chasita taku. He says, okay, Arjuna, I've spoken this profound philosophical treatise. Consider carefully what I have said. and then do what you wish to do. And so Krishna's not saying, I don't care what you do. Krishna wants his dear friend Arjuna to choose wisely and to turn to him, Krishna, in loving devotion. At the same time, no force, no coercion. Once there's force, coercion, manipulation, then there's no love. So Krishna wants us to choose to love him, and the material creation and the karma and the time element. It's designed to support us to turn in that direction, to turn in that direction. And so, yeah, and so just like we're as endeavoring to follow Prabhupada, endeavoring to serve Sri Sri Radha Krishna. So naturally, we're reading Prabhupada's books, and we want to learn what's there. So we're just giving for so many natural reasons. Naturally, we want to understand about creation and this, and there are complexities, and look, we're putting our intelligence and mind into so many complexities and fields and like that, and details. I could tell you more than I want to admit. I could tell you about who won which Super Bowls in which year, and psychedelic and progressive music from the 1960s and 1970s. I could tell you a lot of things and details that I am masterful at, and none of it will take me back to Godhead. So this is all an opportunity to absorb ourselves in nuance, complexity. The principles are simple. The details are complex. That will actually purify our intelligence, purify our mind, purify our heart in terms. So Srila Prabhupada often used the term, the science of self-realization. And it's a completely rigorous, perfect science covering all dimensions of existence. So this relates to the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Okay, so again, so there's Mahavishnu, also known as Karanadakashayi Vishnu, and also known as Karanavasaya Vishnu. And then from Mahavishnu comes Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. From Garbhodakashayi Vishnu emanates the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, who's also the super soul in the hearts of every atom and every living entity. It's like all these names, all like that. At the same time, it's not that, so I need to memorize all of this to do bhakti. No. And at the same time, yeah, that if we're truly sincere to follow Srila Prabhupada, to serve Krishna, then naturally we can learn these names rather than so many names we know in other fields that are not supporting our purification of heart and loving and developing love for God, the natural love of God that's in the heart, just waiting to be awakened. And so, yeah, this is Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and it's going to give birth to Lord Brahma through a lotus stem that sprouts from his navel. And we're going to be hearing about this. Of course, we're not going very quickly in this third canto, but we did start systematically from the beginning of the first canto back December 2010. We studied Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. And so, yeah, and so this is about the verse, and it's about time, it's about the subtle body. Just like, and just like say, well, it's described in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhumira Ponaloba Yukamana Buddhevacha Ahankaramiti Bina Prakitir Astata, that there are 5 gross material elements: external, earth, water, fire, air, ether. It's like this stuff. And there's the subtle body composed of mind, intelligence, and false ego. And those are the 3 primary elements of the subtle material body. All right, so just like when we're sleeping, we lose complete contact with the gross material body. So it's interesting, depending on how we look through the kaleidoscope, depending on how we look through the crystal, Sleep is ignorance. I mean, it's like lower consciousness than we're aware of. It's just sleep, okay? In another sense, and this is described in the Bhagavatam, sleep is actually, in a subtle way, it's a relatively refined and advanced consciousness, because when we're sleeping, we're not identifying with the gross body. When we're awake in conditioned life, I'm completely think I'm David Wolf. I'm this body. 64 years old, and I'm in that illusion. And I need to take care of this. And so we're actually detached from the body when we're sleeping. And then we might say in the dream state, then we identify with the subtle body. I'm not this David Wolf body. I'm flying like a bird. I'm being chased by a monster. I'm identified. So that's another false identification, but more subtle. And then in deep sleep, which in one sense, it's completely gross ignorance. It's completely gross ignorance. But in deep sleep, it's a more liberated state, because then we're liberated from misidentification with the gross body and the subtle body. Okay, so it's some subtle complexities here. And so Srila Prabhupada speaks here about in this dissolution, the gross bodies became unmanifest, but the subtle bodies existed. Okay, so this is the partial dissolution of the universe. Now, the partial dissolution, yes, of the material cosmic creation. Thus, the material energy was not completely wound up, as is the case in the full dissolution of the material world. So there are partial devastations and complete devastations. Again, all of this is described in great detail in the Bhagavatam. Very fascinating subject matter. For me, it is. And whether we find fascinating or not, that its absorption, every syllable of Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental. It reveals truth and is identical with the truth that it reveals. And thus, whether we understand, my mind accepts, my mind rejects, it's transformational for our consciousness. It's transformational for our consciousness. And so, yeah, so like, well, okay. So we quoted the Bible. We'll do it again. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. So it's, whether it's a Judaic, Christian, or Islamic translation, we'll always find that translated as, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. The actual Hebrew, not that I'm a Hebrew scholar of modern Hebrew or biblical Hebrew, but I know enough Hebrew to know that in the beginning would actually be Bareshit, and that's not the first. We're not even talking about the first book or chapter or sentence, but the first letter of the Bible is it's Bereshit. It's not Bareshit. The vowel is Bereshit. So Bereshit translates as in a beginning. Very interesting, because in one sense we can think, oh, modern science conceptions and like the Bible, that's completely different. But actually their conceptions of time are the same. It's a linear conception. There was a point, there was a beginning, a big bang, and from there. So the Vedic conception is, time is cyclical. Time is cyclical. And that's consistent with what the first letter of the Hebrew Bible actually says, in a beginning. So the Bhagavatam and other Vedas describe, there's like the Kali Yuga, which is 432,000 years. And then there's 4 yugas, and altogether it comes to about 4.3 million years. 4.3 million years. And then 1,000, well, about 72 yuga cycles, which comes to a few 100,000 to 100 million years. That's the lifetime of a Manu. We're not going to get too much into the Manus, but they're described extensively in the Bhagavatam. And then 1,000 yuga cycles, that comes to like 4.3 billion years. That's the day. That's like 12 hours for Brahma. And then another 4.3 billion years, that's the night of Brahma, Bhutva Bhutva Praliyate. This is described in the Bhagavatam, in the Bhagavad Gita also, but much more extensively in the Bhagavatam. So like again to 8.6 billion years. And that's one full 24 hours for Brahma. Brahma's time is different than our time. Srila Prabhupada would often say, Albert Einstein more or less got it right, time relativity. So very interesting. In the ancient Bhagavatam, because according to modern anthropological, historical, so-called science, in those 5,000 years ago in India, basically you had cavemen who could grunt. So interesting that cavemen who could barely grunt came out with these conceptions of time relativity, 14 time dimensions, and came out with calculating time. This is described in the book. There's a chapter in the Bhagavatam entitled "Calculating Time from the Atom." The fundamental unit of time is the time it takes for the sun to traverse the width of one atom. So that's all in the Bhagavatam, somehow from these cavemen who could barely grunt. So which kind of indicates that perhaps our modern conceptions of what was happening 5,000 years ago needs to be adjusted like that. I'm just giving a few examples where our modern conceptions do not fit the evidence, like not at all. And so, yeah, and so like there's the pastime in the 13th and 14th chapter of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, Krishna book, where Brahma wants to trick Krishna, and he steals the cows and the calves and the cowherd boys, and it 1 year passes on Earth, and for Brahma that 1 year is just like a nanosecond, and then Krishna, his so-called mystic power boomerangs, and Krishna completely befuddles and bewilders Brahma, and it's quite a maybe we'll read it during a class sometime soon. So there's time relativity, 14 dimensions of time relativity. And so that one day of Brahma, 24 hours, is about 8.6 billion years. And Brahma lives, what's the month of Brahma lives for 100 years. So if we take that 8.6 billion approximately times by 365 times by 100, comes to about 311, comes to 311 trillion, 40 billion years. So that's the lifetime. That's the lifetime of the universe. That's the 100 years for Brahma. Okay, so again, just like, and so we to understand what's the context we're in, because the human context, the material context, elements of that: birth, death, old age, disease. The whole container of that is inexorable time, inexorable time, moving us. Yes, inexorable time. And so to understand time, and it's described in the Sri Brahma Samhita, text 56. I worship that transcendental seat known as Svetadvip, where as loving consorts, the Lakshmis in their unalloyed spiritual essence practice the amorous, loving service of the Supreme Lord Krishna as their only lover. I worship that transcendental seat, Svetadvip, where every tree is a wish-fulfilling tree, where every step is a gate and every word is a song. The water is nectar, the soil is the soil is the purpose gem, the flute is the favorite attendant, where all effulgence is filled with transcendental nectar, where all of the spiritual entities in Texas are all the spiritual entities are nectarian, juicy, tasty, nectarian, where there's where numberless milk cows always emit transcendental oceans of milk, and where there is the eternal existence of transcendental time, who is ever present and hence free from past and future, and thus is not subject to the quality of passing away, even for the space of half a moment. That realm is known as Goloka only to a very few self-realized souls in this world, meaning that even among self-realized souls, it's rare to get an understanding of transcendental activity. So this verse talks about material time, and everything in the material world is a shadow of what exists in the pure form in the spiritual world. There's transcendental time, which because in the spirit, transcendental, Goloka Vrindavan, that transcendental Svetadvip, it means it's complete pure sattva. So Tama, sattva means, because the higher we rise, then the slower time goes. Right? So that's Brahmaloka, time goes very slow. And when we go even beyond Brahmaloka, then time, material time stops. So there's no creation or destruction. Every moment exists eternally. Every moment exists eternally. Every moment is ever present and transcendental. It's not that that time is transcendental. Time is a person who is ever present and free from past and future. And so just like time is what moves things in the material, inexorable time moves things in the material realm. So bhakti, transcendental time, the personification of transcendental time. But love of God is what moves things in the spiritual realm. So there's no tamasic destruction. There's no rajasic creation. That's why it's all sattva. It's all beautiful sattva, steady, ever increasing bliss in service to Krishna. And then we get to look a quality of a sincere aspiring devotee of God is avyarta kalatvam. Avyarta kalatvam means not interested to waste even a moment apart from what's truly valuable. Not interested to get distracted in the shadow drama of life, and completely enthusiastic and determined to utilize every moment in that which is truly valuable, vital, and truly important. Developing, intensifying devotional service to Srila Prabhupada and Sri Krishna, and cultivating self-realization in ourselves and our relationships, and then that becomes the reference point for our decision making. That becomes the reference point to the extent that we're sincere, and that can be like a mirror. Like to what extent, as far as where I go on the internet, what I'm doing with my time, my relationship with sleeping and eating. Yeah, to what degree is this truly serving the highest aims of a spiritual being having a human experience, that aim of realizing who I am, a spirit, soul, servant of Krishna. And to the extent it's not, then I get to look into the mirror of that and meet myself where I'm at. So we're studying here Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, Text 11. Santa Sharire Pita Bhuta Sukshma Kalatmikam Shakti Muti Rayana. Uvasatasmin Salile Padesve Yatana Ludaruni Rudhavirya. Just like the strength of fire within fuel wood, the Lord remained within the water of dissolution, submerging all the living entities in their subtle bodies. He lay in the self-invigorated energy called Kala. Thank you for giving your hearing power to Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. I welcome any comments, questions, realizations, sharing at this time. Bhakti Rose.
So the question is just an amusing thought of all of the things I've seen as far as books and stories and movies about the larger the entity, the faster time goes.
Okay.
Wait, the slower time goes, and the smaller, the faster.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
When I was growing up, right, movies about people shrinking and then riding ants and all this kind of stuff, and when their experience of human beings was that we're like, oh, you know. Anyway. that's what's going through my mind, but nowhere have I ever experienced the idea of a place where time stops,
Okay, yeah.
to be at that high of a level.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, Einstein's theory, not that I'm expert in it, but I mean, even back in seventh grade, like 12 years old or 13, I remember it wasn't a school assignment. Like I went to the school library and I read a biography on Albert Einstein and his theories, and so I've had an interest in these things. And yeah, so I'd say that so times relative to speed and times relative to density, like that. And then Einstein's theories, so as you go closer to the speed of light, time slows down. And then the theory is, well, if one would reach or surpass the speed of light, then the material time stops. So in the Veda conception, as one becomes more and more sattvic and conscious, even like we've had, thousands of experiences, say, maybe in a devotional program in a Sattva seminar, kind of just like oh yeah, just time stop, because like time means like time to eat, I'm hungry, time to sleep. And it's like we're really involved in self-realization, sattva consciousness. Like this is a timeless space. We heard that recently in some of the processes, and we're sharing. Like I'm experiencing timelessness, like that. That's one reason why in some of our programs, if you want to take the seminar, everyone agrees no timepieces. That's one of the reasons. And so we become more and more subtle. The lower modes is more density, and just like there's pressure, time, anxiety. Many years ago, Anandini, she gave me the book Momo. That's from the German author Michael Ende, and it's so much about time and rushing. It's low consciousness. It's machine consciousness, like that. And then Momo, the 10-year-old girl, and she's just in this timeless space. She's not rushed, not pressured, and just everyone gets self-realization and sees themselves and their worth and their value in her association. Yeah, I mean, there's countless um, experience testimonials where, like, in Prabhupada's association, even he wouldn't say something, but people would just be transformed. It's a different space. It's a different realm. But sometimes they would say like he wouldn't say anything the first time. Then they would just see him how he drinks water, and their lives changed forever. Like just because it's this timeless quality. It's this full pure sattvic transcendental quality. And then so one goes up to Brahmaloka. That's the most sattvic planet. There's still some slight tinge of the lower modes, but but Brahmaloka, and then the time is practically stopped, not completely. Like like one year on Earth might be a nanosecond, or 311 trillion. 40 billion years on Earth is 100 years for Brahma, so you could do the math and get to the fractions. Yeah, but then if we go beyond Brahmaloka and past the yes, then past the different shells, of the universe across the Viraj River. This gets into Veda cosmology, spiritual universe and material universe, and then to Vaikuntha. Okay, then we're like beyond the speed of light to go into Einstein's conceptions, and then then that's then that's transcendental time. Then there's no passion, there's no creation, there's inspiration, there's no tamas, so there's no destruction. It's all completely pure sattva past, and that's why in the pastimes of Krishna, in the forest of Vrindavan, that every moment exists eternally. There's no destruction. Hare Krishna. Rachel.
I'm appreciating the distinction between Bare sheet and Bire sheet. Am I saying it?
Yeah.
I'm appreciating the concept of every word like a song,
Mm-hmm.
and
Every step like a dance, every word like a song.
yes, and I'm appreciating I'm having the realization like I'd like to live like that. I'd like to be like that. And yeah, I'm appreciating a lot of these concepts like being very familiar to me, and
Mhm,
it's so I feel like I'm experiencing like comfort in hearing them. Like love is choice. I really
mhm,
appreciate that. I'm appreciating the reminder to like that God wants to be loved. God wants to be loved, and um that's something that's been like alive for me over the past few days, remembering that and wanting more of that, like to cultivate more of that in myself. Um, I was listening to Bhagavad Gita on my drive to Pensacola, and I heard some something like that, and I was hearing also like offering like a leaf and a twig and a fruit, and it was really sweet because that was like my favorite verse that we explored last week.
mm,
And yeah, I'm feeling really grateful for like connection and community, and for like one thing that I also heard in the Bhagavad Gita that was echoed here today and what you read is like just constantly being absorbed in
mm.
these more transcendental thoughts and knowledge to remain in that place, because I'm really coming off of Sattva Tov 3 and coming off of like being around community who's like um, committed to like philosophical, spiritual discussion and connection, like on on that basis, like connecting as human being, as spiritual beings in human bodies. I want to keep it going, so I'm appreciating um, this experience this morning with you all. Thank you.
Rachel, thanks for sharing. I I appreciate, well, it's clear you're intentional to keep it going, and you're here in our connection, conversation, and discussion. I'm appreciating what you're appreciating, including the Bereshit in our beginning is what it actually says, and so consistent with this ancient Vedic wisdom, cyclical time, and yeah, thanks for referencing. You're listening to Bhagavad Gita. Yes, chapter 9, text 26. Krishna says, "If one offers me with love and devotion," that's the key point. Bhakti. Pacham pushpam balam toyam yome bhakti prayachiti tadaham bhakti paratam ashrami prayatadmana. I will accept it. So God, Krishna, is not hungry. He doesn't need us to offer him anything. Sometimes he plays hungry, and he gets really angry at Mother Yashoda when she's not feeding him exactly when he wants. That's pastime. That's the spontaneous play of divine love. It's not material time. It's like, it's been 2 hours since I eat, like that. He's increasing the affection of Mother Yashoda as her darling son, like that. So, but yeah, so Krishna, he doesn't need our offering, and it's not he doesn't need our offering, and he wants our love, and through the food and eating process, that's one way we get to express our love to God, through the prasadam process. Thank you, Rachel. Nitai Lila.
There is that connection that I've between time and karma, right?
Yeah.
Like, because karma manifests our reactions to our fruit and activities manifest in time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of connected. And to me, the idea of time disappearing is like when that anxiety, when we like connect with Krishna fully, let's say through chanting and purifying the heart.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed. Like if I chant really, with attention and sincerity, then just time disappears.
Yeah.
And it's like that anxiety disappears. So it's just, it seems like they're so connected, like the anxiety, like, and then like when you fully kind
Yeah, I appreciate that.
realize.
Yes, like through attentive japa, then it's not theoretical. You experience a timeless space. And anxiety, that's in general, it's like rajasa, some tamas in there. And I need to do this within this time frame, and how it will happen. And I have countless experiences. I'll be in anxiety about something later that day. And sometimes, like, within like 2 or 3 mantras, what to speak of 2 hours of chanting, sometimes within 2 or 3 mantras, I get realizations how I'm going to handle that apparently really, really difficult thing. And I'm anxiety and I'm stressed. And 2 or 3 mantras, I'll get realizations and revelations how to respond, how to handle it, how to be peacefully detached yet effective. And I'll get realizations in that timeless space that I wouldn't get like if I spent like 10 hours trying to sit down and think about it without the chanting. So I have so many same experiences. This like when I'm like doing my personal reading of Prabhupada's books, like even if no one's here, I'll close the door, close my phones, endeavoring to create like a protected embryonic space, timeless space. And then I'll be in a particular consciousness, lamenting about this, anxiety about that. And like, what to speak of, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, one sentence, shift it. And I go into that timeless space of freedom and relief and enthusiasm. Thanks for sharing it, Diane. Anandini wrote, how can we spiritualize our sleeping process? What is transcendental sleep? How can we sleep in devotion? I appreciate the questions. Okay, well, according to my realizations, Rachel's she's personifying the sleep consciousness there online. There's like different levels or dimensions of response to that. Now here we have this. Here we hear about yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is a type of yoga process that I don't know much about. Actually, one time a few years ago, I'm going to say her name, Hari Priya. Most all of you know Hari Priya because she teaches yoga nidra. Nidra means sleep, so yoga nidra means the yoga of sleep. And so she, years ago, really before even she first came to Sappho experiences in 2006 in England and India, and then before she came back in 2022, but I saw her and she said, I want to do a yoga nidra session on you. Okay. So I did yoga nidra once. And it was very restful, very, very restful. And so yoga nidra means the sleep of Vishnu. So Vishnu's sleep is completely transcendental, and it's described extensively in the Bhagavatam. So it's apparently Tama sleep, but it's actually it's a fully enlightened sleep through which the material creation manifests. And in a sense, I met one of my favorite, and I was never into poetry much. One of my favorite poems was a poem by one of these still is Edgar Allan Poe called "A Dream Within a Dream," and he talks about how this life is a dream within a dream. I don't know what sort of transcendental realization Edgar Allan Poe had, but a dream within a dream, that's the description of the Bhagavatam creation. In one sense, the whole material creation is the dream of Vishnu. It's actually true to say that. And within that dream, we have different levels of consciousness, waking consciousness, which is also ignorant if I'm thinking I'm this body and I don't know I'm a spirit, soul, servant of God. But then within the dream of Vishnu, then there's dreaming consciousness, and then within the dream of Vishnu, there's another form of consciousness called susupta, deep sleep. So there's that spiritual sleep, yoga nidra of Vishnu. So we're not going to like try to imitate that. Srila Prabhupada, at least on one occasion I know of, maybe many, before Srila Prabhupada would go and take rest, at least once, he said, now I'm going to waste time. Of course, Srila Prabhupada, he said, now I'm going to waste time. It's because he went to be 24 hours per day engaged in spreading Krishna's movement and serving Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. And of course, Prabhupada wasn't wasting time. Okay, but in his humility said, now I'm going to waste time. So in a sense, sleep is a waste of time. At the same time, if we misapply that and we neglect to sleep, and I'll just sleep 2 hours a day like the Goswamis, because then I'll have more time to do other things, well, great. But probably within like a week or less, I'll get really sick. And then I'll need to sleep like 14 hours a day because I'm really sick. And, so we want to meet ourselves where we're at and so yeah, we do want to minimize sleep in the context of our body and mind being healthy and sharp. So whatever we do, we're present. So, one form, like we can develop, we can and are encouraged to cultivate the consciousness. That's right, for a pure devotee, technically we wouldn't say sleep. We say they're resting, right? It's like technically we don't say I eat prasad, but in higher consciousness, I'm honoring prasad, I'm honoring the grace of Krishna. So the pure devotee is never in tamasic sleep ignorance. The pure devotee, even the sleep, because we can at least cultivate the mentality. I'm resting my body for 2 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever. I'm resting my body to use it in the service of Srila Prabhupada and the Sankirtan movement. And then we're at least beginning to dovetail the sleep activity, the sleep process in God's service. Not just like, oh, I'm going to really enjoy sleeping. Oh, okay. I mean, that might be there too. But like, I'm resting my body to use it so that it's healthy and alive, and it's healthy and fit to engage in service. And then we're spiritualizing our sleep process. Okay, now maybe at more complete levels, not just that mentality, but then it can be, let's say we read Krishna book or Bhagavad Gita or the Bible before we take rest, and we cultivate the capacity that even our consciousness, even our dreams, more and more become Krishna conscious. That's possible, and we can go in that direction. So that's some ways that we can at least move towards sleeping in devotion, experiencing some transcendental sleep. That's some processes. Hare Krishna. And Nandini wrote Hare Krishna.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
And it's my understanding why Srila Prabhupada introduced the so-called sandwich, like hearing in the morning.
Yeah.
And then hearing in the evening before we go to bed, because during the day, of course, ideally we should be engaged in service with Krishna all day, but that because the mind might wander and get involved with different things. So at night, if we hear again about Krishna, then we can actually dream about Krishna or whatever at night. So in that way, the sleeping is spiritualized, and the next day it becomes also easier to get back to the spiritual practice because.
Thanks very much for that, Natalia. Yeah, the Prabhupada used the term the daily service sandwich, and the bread is the sadhana. So like we have our morning program here for like 4.5 hours or more, and then the evening program, and culminating maybe in some Krishna book reading, and that increases, well, that in itself is absolutely good and increases the possibility that our sleep will be transcendental. And then the ideal is we're engaged in service to Krishna all during the day, but sometimes even in our attempts at service, there can be different modes of nature happening. So in the evening, pure transcendental vibration. Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.